The number one consideration I have on this property is about keeping it safe. It's one thing to talk about creating an eco property, but if it burns down in a fire, there's nothing eco about it. It's been a complete waste of time. And so right from the very beginning, I have been considering what my response is to a fire threat. And I've made it a passion. I've also managed to, through that activity, create additional benefits, not only a beautiful garden, but vegetables, animals, and just helping to secure and slow down fire movement within the environment. With the property here at the top of the Blue Mountains, we've been through 2 bushfires, and both of them impacted the property significantly. And also we've had significant rain. And the drought, I suppose, is leading up to the bushfires was also a significant and long, it was about 7 years in the making of just drying out, and it was how do we respond to that. I knew I had to create soil to get a garden going, and I knew for a soil to have an environment in its own, it required moisture. And so I looked at where we had moisture available, and it's grey water. So I went about collecting all the grey water I could from the venue. I would save that water and then distribute it through the garden via underground drip irrigation so that I could establish the garden and keep it moist so that when the fire came, we had a garden and a soil and an environment that was charged with water, and we were capable of defending it. All right, so we've got the grey water system here that harvests all the grey water from both the main house and the cabin. You've got to be planning for that as you start construction so that you can run your different waste pipes accordingly. And so what all happens is all the grey water comes down via 100 mil pipe and enters into the system here. It's nothing too flash really. It goes through a couple of filters, and then if it's not running, it will default go back into the grey water system. So there's always a safe second default position that the system will fall into. Now I'll let that tank build up to about almost full, and then I will use this pump here to distribute that around the property. So this system here is the backbone to providing the water for the property and for the gardens that we've walked through. I had 40,000 litres worth of water I'd saved up, and I was using just a small amount within a tank. I had a range that I wanted to use, and so saving that water gave me an amazing sense of resilience. And when I dumped it on the property and we came back after the fire had been through, saying dumped sort of doesn't give it that same sense of value, but the garden responded after having a beautiful watering. And so after the fires, we came back on site to a garden that was absolutely thriving. Black water, so you've got grey water which comes from your shower and your laundry, and then you've got black water which is basically your toilet water and water from the kitchen, because it contains so much organic matter in it. So that goes down to a digestive Ecomax, and then the water from that goes into what is called an evaporation trench. And I feel that the black water is underutilised in the fact that it usually just gets pumped out. You know, you could get lost on the worry of the world, but if you have areas that you can work within, that you can influence, that you can experience and educate yourself with. Something that I always go back to is when a fire arrives, you are stupid. It's an emergency situation, and everything is telling you to run. Everything is telling you to just, to leave. And if you're not prepared, you're leaving to chance. If you try hard and plan ahead, the chances are it's going to come your way a bit. We give out water during drought, we store water during wet, and we release it responsibly. But first thing is to stop damage through erosion, through the concentration of water flow on the property. And so every opportunity we have to pick up water that's flowing on the soil or on the paving, we pick that water up and we take it and we put it, if it's been on the ground, it's stormwater, and so it's not drinkable. It's used for irrigation or firefighting. Right, so what we're looking at here at the bottom of the asphalt portion of the driveway is some of our pickup for the stormwater. So I've got a slight gradient here bringing the water into the edge of the retaining here, so it's very manageable, and it first of all comes into this sump here. This sump here is really about removing stones and leaves, so that takes the macro debris out of the water, and once it's gone through there and lost the stones and leaves, it comes to a second sump, which is here, and this is an accumulation of several pickups further up the driveway from here, and it's heading down to the stormwater tank where we collect, and that's an additional pickup, so that just stops that mass going down to the tank. I've just put a very coarse wire on that, so that really allows the water to move through it and just catches the odd leaf that is left in it from the primary filtration sumps that I have on the driveway. That's a very passive system of just using gravity to filter and to store the water in that situation. We also have a freshwater swimming pool, which really is just a lovely big above ground pool, and the filter once again recycles the water within the system, and it is crystal clear swimming water that you can swim with the fish, you can drink, but that swimming pool is also one of our primary resources for drawing from in a fire. I think of the fire as like and I don't want to use the word enemy, but it's a kind of a line of energy coming your way that you've got to manage, otherwise it's going to destroy you. So it's coming along, and I'd set up our main defence, and I feel really strong about visualisation of that main defence. 12 sprinklers all facing out to take on the main front of the fire, and it felt really clearly manifested, and the energy was there, the water was there, it was all good to go, and it did its job. The fire came up and it's quenched the fire and protected the property. We used the wind as well, so we put the sprinklers out towards the wind. That's where the fire's coming from. The fire, it suppresses the fire at the first point, but then the wind brings all that water onto the property and reduces the heat and wets the property behind it. So that's the front line out of our main defensive line. But we were taken off the property by the fire brigade because of the risk on the day, and so we left after energising and getting that system up and going. And after 12 hours we were kept off site, the fire encircled the property and found a weakness and came in through the back. And because it was going against the wind, it was slowed down considerably, but it was inching forward, inching forward, inching forward, and it did burn sheds, it did burn asset as it came down. And before I'd left, it's all about preparation. I'd got 2 spray pumps ready with water in them. I had rakes and spades ready for me and Jeff. So as soon as we got back on site, I had the backpacks on, we were dampening down, we were putting out embers. When the next day after the fire, we had big helicopters around here surveying the damage. A big Iroquois came up and he just hovered above our property. And I could just imagine what he was looking at. This green olive in a landscape of black, and we looked up at him, and it was quite a surreal sort of engagement. We're looking at us and, how come you guys look like you're having a summer holiday and the rest is devastation, Armageddon? And Jeff and I sat down and looked at him, and they looked at us, and we were like a moment of contrast, really. I feel that rightfully so we should be feeling quite anxious about what's happening and the direction we're moving in. I suppose I lost home as a child, and so I've been always about re-establishing home, and I suppose protecting the home is one of the primary responses I have to what we have at the moment. I look at suburbia and think it has to be a combined defence, and I feel that the resources can be brought together, and that could be the resource of the combined grey water or even black water, and rather than that going down the drain, it's an amazing resource that should be used to keep that community and soil moist and the things growing in it, and also available for defence. I think what we have to look at is defending the perimeters, the boundaries of what we're living within. And so if that's a community, it's a community boundary, and those resources of combined grey water, combined black water should be being used and paid for by that community, but to provide them with a defence. And so that's what I'd go about. I would prefer to spend time working on my property than distracting myself with shopping.